great. So this, as I said, is an overview of the training program. And within this overview, I think you should be able to follow along. Let's go to the next screen. And here we'll see some areas within the training program. And I really want to refer back to the orders and regulations for officer training. And it's really about knowing God, knowing yourself, and knowing your mission. And so I'm hoping that that will become apparent as we work through this presentation. So first of all, the College for Officer Training has a mission statement, just like we know as a territory we have a mission statement, right? Share the love of Jesus Christ and be a transforming influence in the communities of our world. Well, the specific nature of officer training, we within the College for Officer Training exist to prepare, develop, and inspire men and women in, look at this word, in character and competency. Notice the ranking here. First comes character, then comes competency for Salvation Army officership. These three words, prepare, develop, and inspire. You know, there's lots of preparing work that happens during training. Developing, we can provide you with the resources, we can equip you, but it's you as cadets who develop. And I would hope that you'll find a bit of inspiration in the College for Officer Training. We've got a great staff here who are able to assist and guide you along. For those of you, I think we've got everyone on the screen now. I've got all my staff here, so let me do a formal introduction before we go further. So those of you who are on this morning would have heard me referred to as the training principal. That is my role and responsibility, but we operate as a team. And helping in the team is an assistant principal. That's Major Elizabeth Nelson. Thank you, Major Elizabeth. Phenomenal person in bringing 100 different facets and variables together and making our College for Officer Training work. So thank you, Elizabeth, even now for working this PowerPoint for us. So thank you. I met Major Stephen Cameron and say, you know, not they're downplaying academics. Academics are important. And Major Stephen Cameron's responsibility is indeed as the Director of Academic Studies here in the College for Officer Training. We thank you, Stephen, for your role, and he's going to speak in just a moment as well. Next to him is Major Corin Cameron. Yeah. So Major Corin Cameron is our Director of Field Education. Yeah, they're together, by the way. So yeah, Major Corin is responsible for our field education. When we refer to that, that's everything that happens out in practicum, happens outside of sort of the walls of the College for Officer Training. That's not to say, though, that field education doesn't happen inside, because there are some lectures, some preparatory work before we can actually go out into the field. Next, just going down the line of photos here is Major Darlene Morgan. I can't give her a hug, but she's yeah, she's just down those stairs. You can see actually the stairs behind her. I'm just up from there. Major Darlene Morgan is the Director of Spiritual Formation, and she'll explain a little bit more about that in just a moment. And next in line is Major Roxanne Jennings, who is our Director of Personnel. All matters relating to you as the person, as a family, everything functions when we're happy and healthy and well. And Major Roxanne is responsible for that, right down to housing. And yeah, there's 100 different variables she cares for. One person who is missing is Captain Shauna Golding. Captain Shauna just joined us this past summer. She has a split appointment, so she's a Corps officer in the Western Corps here in the city, and is also a training officer within the College for Officer Training. She's not available to be with us today, but I do want to recognize her. All right, so we made some introductions. We also have on the screen here some cadets. Yes, there's Cadet Zachary Marshall. Yes, and right next to him, you're just confusing me, you know, to see the two of you together. So that's Cadet Kelsey Burford. They are a first-year, Zachary and Kelsey a second-year cadet. They each have spouses, but they're not in the picture, so I'll leave it at that. And Matthew Rideout is joined us as well. Matthew is a first-year cadet, all the way from Newfoundland. Great to have you here on the call this afternoon, Matthew. All right, let's move on to the next screen, and we'll get into this presentation now. So the College for Officer Training, as I mentioned earlier, is based upon some fundaments that are set within the orders and regulations for the training of officers. And these three things do: know God, know your mission, know yourself, know God, know yourself, know your mission. These three things I can remember as a cadet, and forgive me for saying this, but 23 years ago when I was commissioned, I knew that I was to know God, know myself, and know my mission. In fact, in our ordination commissioning service, I was asked to be the representative speaker for our session. And we had a training principal who had every opportunity talked about us knowing God, knowing self, and knowing our mission. And so when I was able to speak on behalf of my session, I invited the entire session to join with me in unison. And I said, and training principal, Colonel Moore, let me tell you that these are cadets who know God, know themselves, and know their mission. This is part of the framework upon which the College for Officer Training operates. So how do we put that into how do we operationalize that? How do we make that actually happen in training? Well, you'll see there's some circles and they overlap and things. And I draw your attention to these three. There is spiritual formation, and there is academics, and there is field. And these three are the ways in which we wrap around the training experience. You'll see personnel off to the left side, and community that wraps everything together. And leading to, down at the bottom, there's a note about a certificate of officership. So these three parts converge together. I would point out to what I mentioned this morning, again from the ONR, about the primacy of spiritual formation and character formation over a purely academic program. So the primacy, spiritual formation, is sitting at the top here intentionally so that we would pay attention to that, the importance of our spiritual formation, our character formation. And those that is the being. That's, you know, the knowing yourself, the being. And then going on to the greater knowing of God and knowing of other things through academics, and then into the doing side of field experience. So putting into practice once you have an understanding of who you are and who God is, and then going out into the mission. So that's how these three parts fit together. At the end of a 22-month residential training program, it is the officer evaluation, the College for Officer Training Evaluation Board, that recommends through the Office of the Training Principal to the territorial commander that an issuance of a certificate of officership be afforded to the cadet, and that we recommend the cadet for ordination and commissioning. So some of the academic requirements that make that up, some of the field requirements that make that up will be explained in just a moment. So what is a certificate of officership all about? It's dependent upon these three sections, these three departments. Before we hand it off to each of the department heads, is there any questions that anyone would have right now? Is this making sense, or do I need to provide any clarity to what I've said so far? I'm not sure how we see hands or how someone says, yeah, I got a question. Yeah, I don't see. Okay, so let's continue on then. I'm going to pass it off to Major Darlene, and she will speak to us about the being, the spiritual formation department, and what is involved in that portion of your training.
Sure, happy to do that. Can you hear me? Yes, great. Spiritual formation, about being, but it's also very much related with doing and understanding. Yes, these three bubbles in that diagram, you can see how they overlap, and the spiritual formation, the being, is on top. We want to give priority to that, but somehow I also think it could be at the bottom, the bubble on the bottom, because it's really foundational for all of who we are. But that's just semantics. But the main thing is that those aspects of training do overlap very much so. What you're learning in the classroom, hopefully will affect your and influence your understanding of God and speak to your spirit. Perhaps what your experience in the field will deeply impact your spirit as well and your understanding. Perhaps you're walking alongside a family who is going through grief. Perhaps that's challenging your understanding of God's goodness. So everything is related and can influence each other dynamic of who you are and who you are in training. So indeed, all of those aspects are important. Major Andrew mentioned the O&R for officer training, and I want to highlight something there as well. The training college is charged with providing an opportunity, so a disciplined Christian environment designed to encourage character formation, and you've heard a lot of that already this weekend, to encourage character formation, spiritual growth and maturity, self-discipline, and acceptance of authority. So it's our responsibility to provide opportunity for all of that in a structured environment. We can provide that, but it's up to you to take opportunity to dive into all of that. We cannot develop you. We cannot grow your spirit. You are responsible for that. Major Liz, if you would go on to the next slide there. And the next one as well. There we go. So it's very tiny there. Yeah, just keep going. We can put all those bubbles up there. That'll help me. At the top there is personal devotions. Well, that's however you want to call it, your time to connect with God. We cannot do that for you. Your spouse cannot do that for you. Your parents can't, your child can't. So this is your way of connecting to God and how you nurture your own soul, how your own soul is nurtured by connecting with God. And again, I'll just quote something briefly from the O&R because I really love the language that they've put into the new revision of the O&R. It says, Jesus calls the disciples into the intimate and personal space where he provides them with intensive teaching in a critical, reflective framework. This will be the primary space where a cadet will learn to know God, experience God's grace and the sanctifying presence of the Holy Spirit, and cooperate with the Spirit in being transformed into the likeness of Christ. So this is where a large part of the rubber meets the road between you and God one-on-one. Going around those bubbles, looking at small groups there. This is a part of a course, part of the spiritual formation course, but it's also part of community life at the College for Officer Training. And we are assigned into small groups, male and female, first and second year cadets mixed up, and there's the staff in there as well. We meet 6 to 7 times a semester, and this is really a great time to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to look at the Word of God together, to study different topics, to pray together, to support each other, and to be accountable to each other. It's a safe place and a confidential place. We really value that time. The next bubble going around there is chapel. And in a normal week at the training college, we have chapel 3 times a week. And it's really an oasis in busy days where we can come together, listen to the Word of God in many different ways. Cadets have opportunity to preach. And we also listen to how God has worked as cadets are able to share their testimony in depth, God's way in me. We title it that way, and we can support each other that way and worship God, give him honor and glory in that way. We also, as you can see in the white spaces to the right, we recognize the Christian calendar, Advent, Christmas, the Lenten season, Holy Week. We also pay attention to different opportunities and events in the Salvation Army calendar. Last Sunday, as an example, was prayer for victims of human trafficking. We recognize that. So different events and focus that the Salvation Army has, we recognize those as well. What else? We take part in different ecumenical experiences of the church worldwide, the World Day of Prayer, the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, and we join together with other denominations in the city as well. We have a holiness seminar, an annual holiness seminar. We have special chapels for around the covenant time and covenant day. So lots of things happening in our chapel times. Down at the bottom there, prayer partners and mentors. This was mentioned somewhere along the way this morning. I heard it mentioned as perhaps part of relating to accountability. And this is an opportunity to meet, usually with an officer in the city, sometimes with a lay person, to meet with an officer in the city for prayer, speak about your life with God, to speak about what you are experiencing in field and in the classroom, how your life is affected, to be open and to request prayer, pray for each other, and to be held accountable for different things in your life as you open up to someone else. It's also a learning process for many people who have not been in this type of relationship. So it's learning how to reach out, learning how to make time and space for that. It's really a blessed opportunity. All right, going around the bubbles there, we come to the spiritual formation course itself. This is a accredited course through Booth University College, and it's spread over 4 semesters and receives 3 credits. This is not optional, even if you come with other theological and biblical studies under your belt. This is not an optional course, just like the field course is not optional. And it's a wonderful opportunity to be refreshed or learn of new spiritual disciplines that can enhance your own life with God as well. And under that follows the prayer partners and mentors, the small groups as well. The first year does cover mainly different spiritual disciplines, habits of grace, and the second year prepares you and helps you to learn how to help others incorporate different disciplines and enhance their own life with Christ and their discipleship, learning how to disciple others. We have coming around there the bubble top left in Sundays. Twice a semester, we have opportunity to come away from our field responsibilities and our field placement corps and come together at the training college under the leadership of our territorial leaders. That would be the Chief Secretary and Territorial Secretary for Women's Ministry and the Territorial Commander and Territorial President for Women's Ministries. And we have the children, your children, cadet children are with us for the morning worship time for a period, and then they usually are going off for their own time of worship and activities. They're not with us in the evening. We have an evening service as well. We share lunchtime together and an evening meal together as well. That brings us around full circle. In the background there of that slide, I don't know if you can see the word community, but that is behind everything. We might be glowing saints with a shiny halo until we bump into someone else who gets on our nerves, quite frankly, or, you know, we're honest about things. And then that is an opportunity really to examine our own holiness, examine our own spiritual life and how that comes out. So community life is very important for our spiritual growth and refining, supporting each other and challenging each other, sharpening each other. I would almost like to add another bubble to this diagram, and it just occurred to me in the last session with Major Jennifer. She spoke about in preparing to come to officership, you know, you need a medical exam. We want to see that you're fit and all of that, very important. But we are complex beings, and so our spirit is not separated from our body, mind, and soul. And so we do not compartmentalize, but one opportunity when we do address the wholeness of each of us is in staff advising. That falls under personnel, so Roxanne will address that. But we do touch base with how is it with your soul? How are you physically? How are you feeling? How is your mental state right now? Are you getting good rest and exercise? How is your family? How are you managing your resources for the Lord? Are you tithing? All those kinds of things. So we know we are complex beings. God has created us that way. All things overlap, and yeah, we want to bring it all before the Lord to be the best people that we can be for Him and for His service. So that was a lot of talking, but lots going on in spiritual formation to help us be the best we can be for the Lord.
Thank you, Major Darlene. So let's pass it along the circle. Next in line would be academics. So let's hear from our Director of Academic Studies, Major Stephen Cameron.
We just have such a huge department at the Department of Academics here at the College for Officer Training. It's just packed with wonderful personnel, and it's hard to figure out what's going on, but we have a good time. I want to say, yes, you said that to everybody. Thank you. I just want to say that academics actually should be part of Major Darlene's wheel, and I mean this sincerely. Academics is part of spiritual formation.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, not that spiritual formation is part of academics, but academics is really in terms of building your character and your relationship with God. It's really part of spiritual formation. And I really appreciate the emphasis upon that at the College for Officer Training that I've just been for 2 months, really enjoying my time. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, all your mind. Academics at the College for Officer Training actually leads towards a degree at Booth University College. So the 730 days that you spend here in residence at the College for Officer Training helps you towards getting an academic degree at Booth University College. You won't finish all of your courses to complete your degree, but you will be able to complete that degree after you leave college. When you come to college, you get to have a wonderful interview with the huge department that we have at in the academics department at the College for Officer Training. And academic training is individually based. Almost, would I say tailor-based, or is that going to be too confusing? We sit down and we see where you've come from, what experiences you have, and we tailor the program to what is best going to suit your needs. So right now, if individuals come into training college with a background in education, we see what can best be helpful to them. So some people are taking some master's degree at Tyndale College. We are working with Major Bruce Power to start holding independent study programs so that you can study in areas that are most appropriate for you. And if you don't know Major Power, he is brilliant. And it's almost like you're sitting at the feet of a prophet. So we're really working at that hard for that to get to take place. And so of the cadets that are at the college, the auxiliary captains, the field-based tailored training cadets, and the second year field-based cadets. And right now we're not dealing with the auxiliary lieutenants. They're looked after by Major Deanna Zielinski. All of their programs are individually based for them. There's a few, there's a quadrant really in terms of what you'll be learning at the training college. Biblical studies. Oh, here we go. Practical skills, Bible knowledge, Salvation Army distinctives, and personal development. Some of those courses you can come in with your PhD, and if you have not looked at Salvation Army theology, I'm sorry, you'll have to take a Salvation Army theology course because you need to know the theology and background of the place in which you will be serving as a minister. You've ministered with Christ before you came to training college, you're ministering with Christ as you're at training college, and you will minister with Christ as you leave training college. At this point, College for Officer Training is able to hold face-to-face classes. This is an exception in many of the parts of Canada, and we are really privileged to be able to teach in this way. That's all I need to say now. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless you as you discern God's calling upon your lives.
Thank you, Major Stephen. So next in line, according to our circle, would take us on to the field department. So Major Corin Cameron, explain to us what happens through the field department in training.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to see that there's 26, it looks like, in the accepting track, or at least who are viewing this. So it is wonderful to have you with us today. It's wonderful that at this point, the technology is working. I know we've been really praying for that. I would like to read to you a quote that provides for me the foundation of why we do what we do in field. And once again, as we listen to this, we'll realize that field is also part of spiritual formation. And so here we go. This is from Teresa of Avila. Christ has no body now but ours. No hands, no feet on earth but ours. Ours are the eyes through which Christ looks with compassion on this world. Ours are the feet with which Christ walks to do good. Ours are the hands through which he blesses all the world. Ours are the hands, ours are the feet, ours are the eyes, ours are the body. Christ has no body now on earth but ours. And so that is what we think of in the field department. We think this is the time that we get to use our hands and put our hands out there for Christ, with Christ, as Christ to one another in the field. And so I believe we have a wheel that will follow around that shows for you the field department and all of the different components that are involved. And I like to think of this, you know, also like trees in a circle that are ever expanding from one another. So when you first arrive at the College for Officer Training, we go a little bit light on you in the field department, and your first semester is largely observation. So you will get to encounter 4 different social services centers here in the city, a nursing home, corrections, a thrift store, and our Center of Hope, which services in multiple different capacities to people that are facing different economic and mental health barriers. And so we'll do that. We have, after a couple of weeks, we get to have a bit more hands-on experience in our first semester, and you'll have the opportunity to be involved in leading chapel services at the Center of Hope. One of the beautiful things is because in the government's eyes, the chapel services are considered part of the circle of care around which the residents are held, that those are in-person worship that are still able to happen. So there's the chapel services at Center of Hope. There's the Wiedema drop-in, which a couple cadets go to at a time, and they're able to service up to about 400 people in the course of a day with food support. And then we're actually also going to be involved in serving a Thanksgiving dinner through Wiedema Ministries as well. So that's the first semester. In your second semester, you will be exposed to a bit more of a concentrated experience in one social services ministry. And that might be a Salvation Army ministry, such as the Golden West Centennial Lodge or the Barbara Mitchell Family Resource Center, which works with newcomers to Canada. Or it might actually not be with the Salvation Army. We have a few people this time around that will be going to Youth with a Mission, and it's a really cool building downtown Winnipeg that has a climbing wall on the outside of the building. So it's a really fun place to be, although it'll be January, so it probably won't be very practical to use the climbing walls during January. Then in your second year, you will be partnered with one specific corps and one specific corps officer or corps officer couple. And you'll be able to journey with that corps family for a year. And the neat opportunity with this is that you'll get exposure to the multiple complexities that you will be facing as a corps officer. And it's a wonderful chance to have exposure to the ins and outs in the day-to-day in terms of worship development and business, and see how everything can be held together. So that's in your second year. In addition to those semesters while you are here in Winnipeg, we have different deepening experiences. So for instance, a summer assignment. This year it was only 3 weeks long because of the multiple restrictions that had fallen upon us with COVID, but traditionally they're about 8 weeks long, and they could be anywhere in the territory once COVID restrictions are lifted, that is. And we also have winter assignments, which are 2 weeks long. And this is a bit more of a helicopter-in approach. You're getting there. And the neat thing about this is you're right at the tail end of Christmas, right when that ministry unit is going to need some extra gas. They're going to get some energized cadets to help instill some energy and excitement in the marathon that is Christmas. We are working away at these as we speak, keeping a very close eye on everyone's health is really important to us, and the COVID restrictions. So, but we are still working away at those as we speak. Within all of that, we also have a couple of other ways that people can have intensive experiences. Easter campaigns are some fun opportunities, but also special weekends that come up throughout the year. In 2 weekends, we have 3 cadets who will be part of a virtual Prairie Youth Council. So the DYSs that are out there, we have cadets that can come and support virtual events. We have cadets with us on one of these weekends that are supporting us. And this, again, is part of rounding out their field experiences. We're in the process of developing an online Remembrance Day service that will be using different cadets. Again, so throughout the year, there's multiple extra opportunities that come up. And if we can find a way to get a cadet involved, we'll find a way to get a cadet involved. So bless all of you. I am praying for you, and Stephen is praying for you as as you're discerning God's call this weekend. And I can speak from my own heart that while being an officer isn't always easy, it is deeply, deeply rewarding. And I really hope through this weekend that you will be encouraged in your faith as your ears are getting tuned into what God is calling you to.
Now is the time.
Thank you, Major Cora and Major Stephen. So you see back to our beginning slide here with knowing God, knowing self, and knowing mission, and how we try to fulfill those 3 requirements through the various parts of the CFOT program. Some of you I know had joined the previous session with Major Roxanne to hear more from the personnel department about how you can be supported as an individual cadet or a cadet with family. I don't know whether Major Roxanne, you wanted to add to this conversation in regard to personnel and the wraparound services. Perhaps there's someone on in this session who wasn't present for what you had shared earlier. And then once Major Roxanne's had an opportunity to have a word, I want to entertain some questions, some answers. And you know, for the sake of honesty, integrity, and transparency, we've got some real life cadets here on the session. And so maybe you want to pose a question to one of them and allow them to answer that from their own lived experience. So first to Major Roxanne, and then invite you to put your questions in the chat, and I'll moderate the Q&A.
Mm-hmm. Sure, thank you, Major Andrew. We'll continue in a little while with some things about preparing for CFOT. How do we actually get here, and what do we need to know in getting here? But before we get there, I just want to say that you can see how everything is intertwined here at CFOT. You know, spiritual formation, field, academics, personnel, we're not standalone offices. We work together as a team to see each cadet complete training successfully, and examine ourselves, our character, our competencies. We work together for you, right? We want to see you succeed, and so together we do this, and it's our privilege. It is indeed our privilege to serve God through the College for Officer Training, and we are honored to be here and walk this journey with you. Yeah.
Major Roxanne, she's a tremendous asset to the CFOT team. Wonderful person to turn to, and I think any of the cadets would you know, be able to give testimony of the good assistance she's offered. I'm just texting with Major Elizabeth, assistant principal. I said, have you got some words to add? She said, no, she's good looking after the technology. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. Excellent. Well, how about some questions? We'll see if we can find some answers. Anything about the College for Officer Training program? So I see Mary, she says, I have a question. What's the most difficult thing you've done as an officer? Well, let's see. Would any of the officer staff want to comment to that? I'd jump in and offer Major Elizabeth the most difficult thing she's done as an officer. Listen to this. Oh, we got to get you to turn your microphone on, Elizabeth. Down the bottom.
Sorry, I muted myself. Getting all packed up and moving off to Bangladesh, the other side of the world, far from family and friends and a new culture. As much as that was fantastic, the most difficult, I think, for me was when there were some stressful times with my family in Canada and not being able to be here and nearby. But being overseas, I think any appointment that I've had overseas, I've been in Bangladesh and in London, England at IHQ, and even the couple of appointments I've had here in Canada, I've loved every minute. Not that there aren't difficult days, there are definitely difficult days, but God is there and gives you the strength to see you through.
Amen. Thank you, Elizabeth. I see a couple of more questions come in. So first, Krishna, you've asked, how do cadets know, I know cadets can do a more field-based training. How do you decide if a person is eligible or has the necessary characteristics to do so? I don't mind answering that, Krishna. It's on a case-by-case, individually decided basis. So I don't have an answer to say that if you do this and this and this, then you qualify as a field-based tailored training cadet. Major Brian Armstrong in an earlier session referred to a prerequisite of education, and that has very strong bearing on it. So if you've got academics in hand, you'd be more apt to have a potential for a field-based tailored training program. I hope that answers your question. Major Stephen, don't go away. There's a question here I think you might be able to answer. It says, what does the course load typically look like in hours, classes per day, per week, homework, etc.? What kind of a scary report can you give these folk?
Okay, good question. Cadets generally take 5 courses a semester. So let's say September to December is 1, January to April is 1, and then there's some intensive courses. So a course load would be, 1 course is 3 university credit hours, which works out to 30 hours of class time for 1 course and 90 hours of total time. It's usually basically 2 to 3 hours of study for every 1 hour of class. And just recently, Major Andrew and myself have been looking at the comparisons between the training colleges in the United States and in Canada, and the requirements from the orders and regulation. And the training college in Canada stacks up very well with those educational standards. It is, I believe it's doable. Just realize that this is just coursework. You do a lot of things at training college, and so all of those things add together to make it a significant time here. So you're looking at 90 hours in total for studying class time per class. So we've got 5 classes, 5 times 9 equals, what does that equal, my dear?
45 hours.
45 hours a week is basically studying class time. Oh, thank you, Natalia. Yes.
Thank you, Major Stephen. So let's have a real live cadet talk about whether this is manageable or not. I'll excuse Zach and Matt from this because you're just a month in. But Kelsey, you've been around for a year. What does your life really look like as a cadet? Time involved in classroom and in field. How's it stack up? Homework and all that together.
Being someone that had done some previous study, I had an idea, I guess, of what to expect in terms of course load, but I definitely would say it's manageable. I mean, completing the readings is obviously very key to that being manageable because it helps to engage you in discussions and things like that. But I would say time-wise, it's manageable to do your studies as well as have life outside of and be able to still have that kind of Sabbath rest for yourself, as well as still engaging many of your regular activities.
Thank you. Good answer. Good. Very good. It's true. It's manageable, and we're attentive to these things, recognizing that not everyone's study habits are the same. Not everyone reads at the same pace. Not everyone writes at the same pace. But we wouldn't want to set anyone up to fail. We don't make this the most difficult thing so that we either make you or break you. That's not the intent at all. I see a question from Corey about how many hours per day. Typically, Corey, classes happen in the morning, and we would have 2 classes of 75 minutes each. So that's 2.5 hours of instruction in class instruction time a day, typically. Other questions?
Someone is asking, what is the age cut off to enter CFOT?
Yeah, we just receive you. We don't get to make that decision. So I would say Major Jennifer would be better to ask that question of. I know that we have mature students, even second career students coming in, but I think the intent with the College for Officer Training entering 22 months of training, 2 years of training, looking at the return on investment of your 2 years. So if you're age 55, you come for 2 years and you want to retire at 65, that leaves you with 8 years of service. That's probably not the best investment of your time nor the Army's time. So yeah, the cutoff is probably something less than 55, but I'd invite you to present that question more specifically to Major Jennifer Hale. What other questions might we have posed? Oh, there's a good one, Mary. Cadet has a mentor, someone to be responsible for. Do officers have something like that? So you're referring to post CFOT or during? I'll have Major Darlene speak to during, and then I'll make a comment about after. Down at the bottom, your microphone. Yep.
So us as mentor officers during training college while we are here, or I think it applies to any time during officership. I have had a prayer partner / mentor through most of my officership, someone that the Lord has laid on my heart or has directed to me, sometimes has come my way, and that's been so beneficial to me. Sometimes it's been an officer, a fellow officer. Sometimes it's been an officer in another part of the world. Sometimes it's been a person not in the Salvation Army at all, but involved in ministry. And that has been so beneficial for me. Accountability, sharing burdens, sharing life experience and what we're going through in ministry. We are also, as officers, accountable to someone. So we report to someone. Every officer reports to a senior officer. We have annual evaluations using the peak process, so an annual review of our service, how we are doing in life and ministry together. But as an officer, having a mentor is not a requirement, but it's certainly recommended and is for our own benefit and growth and thriving as an officer. Does that answer your question approximately? Any other officer want to jump in to add on to that or correct?
I'll jump in to say I have a mentor, and she actually entered my life as a teenager. Then she was a younger captain than she is now. She's now a retired officer, but it has been really, really helpful to me to have to really help sort through some of the challenges. And she's very good at poking into the areas I would rather ignore about myself. And so if you have somebody in your life that can be that for you, for me, having retired, she's now a retired officer, it's helpful because she does understand the Salvation Army and some of the unique things we face, such as the appointment system. But, you know, I'm sure that it doesn't have to be. It's just someone that who does understand ministry, so you can talk through challenges with, but also someone who can hold you accountable and help you become the best you. Recognizing it's Jesus that transforms us and helps us be the best we can be, but someone that Jesus will use in that way in our life.
Thank you, Major Corin. And don't go away, because I saw someone had a question, and I think it's related to field. It's about coming and going, traveling to and from CFOT and to and from your field training experience. What's that all about? How do we get around the city?
So in the city, we have, right now, I believe we have 17 bands. And the bands fall under the field department with the wonderful support of the assistant principal. And we have cadets that coordinate the schedules each and every week. So, so getting around the city, that is two different extended field opportunities that span the territory or beyond the territory. We have a nice budget that we can utilize to help fly people to different parts of the world to help expand your training when COVID restrictions will allow us to do that. And then for your children, some of this definitely overlaps with personnel. So I will fill in the parts of it that are linked with field. Your children will come with you on a Sunday to whatever field assignment you are at. And your children are taken into consideration when we're choosing the Sunday placements for you. So they will accompany you wherever that may be. For the winter assignments, the children do not go with us on the winter assignments. So there's a couple of ways we can manage this. The first is that we will cover the costs for someone to come here, and that the details of that will be worked out through the personnel department. But we cover the costs for someone to come here and look after your children in order for you to go. There's also the option for one parent to stay and with the children and another parent to go. There's also the option for both parents to stay here in Winnipeg and have a learning experience here in Winnipeg. For your summer assignment, the children get to go with you. And the neat thing about that, especially when it's about 8 weeks long, is it begins to help you realize how your children are able to be a part of your ministry as well. And that goes throughout life. We have 3 children. We have one who is still living with us here in Winnipeg, and she's even finding little ways to be involved in our ministry at CFOT, such as baking cookies, or stuffing bags for mom. So yeah, we love children, and I believe that my first calling is as a mom. And I believe, if we have God at our center, and then we take care of our marriage, and we take care of our children, and then we take care of all the wonderful people God brings into our lives, if we keep that formula, then God really honors that, and God keeps the balance for us. But maybe a cadet could help answer that about. And it's commuting back and forth. So you got but this is something that'll happen with me a lot. You get way more information you need. Maybe a cadet can answer.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Major Corin. And I wanted to ask one of the cadets, because there's a question about what you do for fun. I mean, we're talking about program and education and training, but let's talk about the rest of life as well, because you do have some free time and some fun. So talk a little bit about your commuting experiences and what you do to have some downtime. So anyone at all, Matt, Zach, Kelsey?
I can jump in on this one. Major Steve asked what we do for fun. Well, when I sit down and have some fun, I crack open a theology textbook and I'm in for the night. No. As fun as that might be, I mean, we're normal people, right? So my wife, Julie, and I, we love to watch movies. So that we do that for fun. But here at the College for Officer Training, we are also intentional among the cadets to develop a sense of community. So I've only been here for a month and a bit. So in that month, we've had community barbecues where we could come and meet each other and hang out. We've had different events like that just to build that sense of community, because at the end of the day, we are all here for the same purpose. We're all training towards the same goal. So to kind of come together outside of our training and to build relationships like that, it's really awesome. And we're really intentional among the cadets to do that in that capacity.
Matt or Kelsey, you want to jump in about what's fun at CFOT?
Sure, I can jump in. So after being here for a year, there's some spots around as well that we like to go to. So like one spot that's become a favorite, I think, among the cadets that's recently opened is the rec room, because it's very kid friendly. But for the most part, I think that sense of community that we build kind of at the beginning seems to kind of stick with us quite well. And so often there'll be posts in our little groups about we're having a game night if people want to come over and play some games, or like different things like that. And it's very easy to kind of meld into that because we're around each other so often. And to go have a game night with someone. It's a matter of walking down the hall and knocking on their door. Like it's very conducive to having a fun community life as well.
We don't want to leave you out, Matt. First few weeks experience, are you having fun?
Yeah, it's been really cool so far. Yeah, I would just like echo what Zach and Kelsey both have said, and you know, it is kind of cool to you know, be living next door to, and you know, you can just walk outside in the hallway if you're in the condos, and you know there are a bunch of just nearby, and you can hang out, you can have a board games, watch a movie. Just have really good conversations and get to know people, share a meal. So it's been a really, really fun experience so far. And yeah, looking forward to the months to come.
Matthew, I see we're just about out of time. I think it's supposed to end now at 1:30. Are we interested in taking a break and coming back? Give me an answer in chat. Should we take a break and come back?
It's the same group to continue, but taking a break might be a good plan. So,
or we just continue for a few more minutes and wrap it up rather than take a break and come back. What do you think?
Up to the group. Yeah.
I hear some thumbs up. I see some thumbs up and see some people saying, yeah, continue on. So let's do this. There was an important comment I saw. It was Joshua who asked about furlough. What does furlough look like? We're talking about a program, and we talked about some fun time. But what about actual downtime, furlough? Major Roxanne, would you speak to that? In 22 months, what does furlough look like?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, cadets get 2 weeks of furlough, and that's assigned at the end of summer assignment. You'll get, so after your first year summer assignment, there's 2 weeks break, furlough. That's, you're on your own to do what you would like with that. And then at Christmas, following winter assignment, there's normally a break. And it's really just on scheduled time. Again, you get to decide what you want to do with those days, and how many days that is really depends on the academic calendar and when the new session starts in the new year. And so, for example, this year, I believe there's 10 days between winter assignment and when the next classes start. Last year, depending on the calendar, there were a few more days than that. So it really does depend on the academic calendar as to how many days that will actually be. But you get 2 weeks furlough. Yeah.
And before you complain and say 2 weeks and 2 years, that's not enough, let me say that upon commissioning, completion of your 22 months of training, you are entitled in that year and the remaining of that year to take 4 weeks of furlough. So it's only a 2 week window in the middle of your training because it's quite an intensive 22 months, but there is opportunity to take furlough post CFOT once you enter your first appointment. Major Roxanne, maybe you could take offline some questions I see here about, what does the day look like, a family with 2 kids? I think you had a session on families in training, but I see there was a question relating to that. So if you've got a question relating to families, feel free to be in direct contact with Major Roxanne. And Mia, you've got a question about formalized mentoring relationships set up for new officers. You've touched on something that is very, very new. In fact, the messengers of Kingdom, thank you, who were just commissioned last June, were the first new lieutenants to engage in a formalized mentoring relationship in the field. So this is quite significant. It's becoming operationalized across our movement and is really a good thing. Any other questions being posed? Anything else we can help you with? Trying to keep it focused in with the intent of this session about our program. Have you got a specific question for one of the cadets or one of the officer staff?
There was a question, are cadets expected to wear a uniform in the class? So I'll give that to Major Roxanne from personnel.
Yeah, yes, cadets wear informal uniform to class. So the uniform that you're seeing Major Andrew, Major Darlene, and Major Steve wear today, the white shirt, the tie, the epaulets, yep, black pants, black shoes. That's required for the classroom.
Other questions? Oh, Corey's got a practical one. Yeah, cable and internet provided in the residence. Major Roxanne, speak to that.
We do have internet at the residence. However, if you require cable TV, that's a personal expense. And if you're a gamer, for example, and the internet that we provide is not suitable for what you might need for your gaming needs, then that would be a personal expense as well to get an internet package that would meet your needs.
Very good. Furniture, great question. Major Roxanne?
I think some of those will be answered in the next section on preparing for CFOT. So, yeah.
Spoiler
you want me
alert.
to jump in there? Spoiler alert.
Maybe a short answer, and we'll direct people, yeah, to more information in your session.
Sure. Furniture, all the furniture you need is provided. Yeah. Unless you have that special chair, which there's not really any room for, but you know, unless you really have something you would like to bring, all the furniture you need is provided.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns?
Do cadets come together and pay for Netflix or cable then? No. If people have a requirement for Netflix or cable, that would be a personal, individual expense. I don't even believe we're allowed to share cable, but I don't know much about it.
Christopher, you've got a question about study and a choice of study. I would refer you to Major Stephen and certificate of officership. Major Stephen, maybe to identify that the minimum requirement in studies is related to the certificate of officership. What does that involve exactly? What are the typical courses in a certificate of officership?
The typical certificate of officership, and again, it's individually tailored, so it looks different for different people. But if it was basic and you just come to college with your high school diploma, you would be needing to take 61 credit hours. So there would be biblical studies, there would be ministry studies, theological studies, spiritual formation in terms of a credit course comes under that in terms of academics, even though I believe academics comes under spiritual formation, but the actual course for credit is in the academic grid field. You get an academic credit for field as well. You're looking at your first year, if you come to, again, college without any post-secondary education, would be Introduction to Old Testament, Introduction to New Testament, Homiletics 1 or Preaching 1, Preaching 2, the Spiritual Formations 1 and 2, Field 1 and 2. Let me think of anything else off the top of my head. I don't have a grid in front of me, but again, it's basically 5 courses a semester. There's going to be intensive courses, so you'll be going to class from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon during 1 week period, and at the end of that week, you will receive a credit. So in this coming January, Major Roxanne and myself will both be offering one of those intensive courses. Major Roxanne will be doing human resources. I believe that's close to what the title of the course is, and I'm doing homiletics. My wife has just written me a note and let me know that there's exemptions made for like courses, such as university English. So if you've taken a degree at a university, and in the last little while, most universities are requiring you to take an English language course so that you know how to cite and know how to write academically. And if you've taken that, you can get an exemption for that. If you've gone to Bible college or seminary, you can also get exemptions for that. One of the cadets here could speak to that. Oh, he's just left. Zach has a credit from Booth University College Bachelor of Business Administration. He also took some religious courses when he was at Booth University, and so he was exempt from some courses and was able to take some courses at Tyndale. Okay, I think that's what I've got. And I'm sorry I don't have an academic grid in front of me at this time.
It's quite all right. So what you heard from Major Stephen is that the certificate of officership is based upon the premise of a Bachelor of Arts in Biblical and Theological Studies. And it's a good question that was posed, because we have people who come in with different types of degrees. Bachelor of Business Administration, you heard referred to just then, Bachelor of Science. You can come in with a Master of Business Administration. These are all great degrees and will aid in your Salvation Army officership. But the minimum requirement for the certificate of officership is reflected by the Bachelor of Arts in Biblical and Theological Studies. We are first and foremost ministers of the gospel, and that's the current directive we have for training. So yeah, we add courses on after that, and certainly post CFOT, you might specialize in some studies in a similar way that some of you may have specialized in studies before you came to CFOT. So I'm hoping that's helpful in regard to academics and yeah, how your education happens. Jeff,
okay,
Robin,
and Andrew, there's just, sorry, Major Andrew, I apologize. Just from Jeff Robinson wanted to know. I think he used the word statute of limitations. I think that's for a crime, but sometimes education can be a crime. In terms of transferring your credits to get a Booth University college degree, the statute of limitations is 10 years. So if you've taken university courses 10 years ago and you wanted to transfer them to get a BA in theological and religious studies from Booth, you would not be able to transfer those old courses. But for instance, if you have done university courses that allow you to take master's courses, I would look at your grid and say, okay, this individual has a good solid foundation in Old Testament studies. He could be exempted, or she could be exempted from the Old Testament requirement and could perhaps take a master's level course at Tyndale University, or there's other options. I believe, Jeffrey, you asked about if you are exempted, are there lots of options for other courses? Again, I've been here just about 2 months. Major Andrew, Major Elizabeth, and myself are looking into areas where we can expand the availability of courses that you can be looking at. And we're really, really hoping that we can get Bruce Power under the umbrella. Major Bruce Power, he's a resident in Toronto, a former officer, a retired officer, and he is brilliant. And so we're looking into him. And there's also lots of universities and colleges around the Winnipeg area that can be helpful in this area as well. So in the weeks and months that follow this, this session, I am really going to try and expand the options that we're able to use for courses if we're exempted.
Yeah, okay. Let's start this one again. So yeah, I'm putting a disclaimer out there that the information that I'm sharing with you today is based on what I know today. And things are always subject to change. And so please keep that in mind. If I give you, you know, a figure today and you think that's not what Major Roxanne quoted when she talked to us, then know that, you know, things are always subject to change. But we'll keep you informed as things change. So in thinking about and preparing for CFOT, it's important to know that the tuition fee for training currently is $1,200, and this is applied toward cadet living expenses, textbooks, course fees for the entire 22-month training period. That helps to just offset the cost of training per cadet with the average training cost being $75,000 per cadet. So we're thankful for the Salvation Army's investment in cadets training, and yeah, we're very privileged and thankful. No. We use 2 translations of the Bible here at the college, the NIV and the NRSV, New Revised Standard Version translations of the Bible. What and what not to bring. So all condo units are equipped with the necessary furnishings, including laundry and a small deep freezer, a 2-desk or a desk, and 1 chair. The apartments also have their own window coverings, smaller miscellaneous items such as televisions, filing cabinets, computers, small kitchen appliances, dishes, pots and pans, linens. Those things are not supplied in residence, and candidates, except the cadets, are encouraged to retain these personal items and bring them with you to the college. Please think of any questions you might have as we go through. We'll go through the presentation and then we'll answer any questions you might have. Note that there is, for each condo unit, a 15 square foot storage locker in the condo building, and this must accommodate all storage, including winter tires. Note, however, if you want to store stuff in your closets, you're welcome to do that as well, but we have no extra storage for you apart from this locker that's actually assigned to each condo. It's required that cadets who have small children bring their own cribs, high chairs. Those things are also not supplied. You may also wish to bring a small propane barbecue or balcony. Each condo unit has a balcony. There are small balconies, so not big barbecues, but a small propane barbecue would work on those balconies.
Rebecca's on.
Can we go back one? Did I missed one? No, okay, thank you. Candidates may choose to bring their personal vehicle to CFOT. We noted this early in an earlier session. There are a limited number of heated indoor parking spaces available, and they are assigned on a first come, first served basis. Due to a very limited space, there may be a monthly personal cost involved to having your own personal vehicle here if you have to park your vehicle outside. And again, outside we have limited parking. So really think long and hard about whether or not you want to bring a personal vehicle to CFOT. If you have it, you will use it for sure. People do that. But those who've chosen not to bring a personal vehicle feel they are able to use CFOT vans when they need to, and that has not been a hardship for them. So yeah, we talked about earlier, CFOT vans are available to cadets for personal errands free of charge, a maximum of 60 kilometers per month, and that's per cadet. So a single cadet will get 60, a married couple would get 120 because each cadet gets 60 kilometers per month. Any personal mileage over and above this amount must be approved by the Director of Field and will be invoiced to a rate of 52 cents per kilometer. All cadets must have a valid driver's license on CFOT arrival. Arrival at CFOT, I looked at the calendar and it would appear that you will arrive somewhere between August 23rd and 25th, 2021. Again, that's with the hopes that COVID is behind us. If COVID is still here and there's requirement for isolation, that may change. So we will keep you informed as we work through the arrival date for next summer. On scheduled time all weekend. So in that week, there would be scheduled time, on scheduled time to up into the weekend, except for Sunday, to unpack and get acquainted with the city. Currently, the first 2 or 3 Sundays, depends again on the calendar, how the calendar goes, you would be assigned to core rotation, get to see just how some of the core in the city run, you know, what's happening in their core. Orientation would begin on August 30th, and the second year session would return after Labor Day. So the second year cadets are on furlough. As we've said earlier, they're on furlough following summer assignment right through to Labor Day weekend. When you think about getting here, CFOT will reimburse transportation, accommodation, and meal cost incurred based on submission of receipts and according to the operating policy. I've named the number there. That's old because the operating policy doesn't have a number now, but there is an operating policy that tells us how much we can spend when it comes to traveling and accommodations, meals, and all of that will be in your candidate's memorandum. While at CFOT, cadets are provided with an air-conditioned condo. Allocation of these units will be determined by family size, needs, and size of sessions. Okay, so we currently have, Major Darlene might have to help me. Major Darlene was once the Director of Personnel as well. We have three bedroom units. We have 3 one-bedroom units, and the rest are 2-bedroom units. And we have 24 condo units, and currently we own 2 townhouses, and we are renting a townhouse. So that's what we're working with currently for accommodations. As I've said earlier, we do have Wi-Fi that is available, and we've done some work on our Wi-Fi to try and make it more user-friendly and better. However, if that is not suitable for your needs, you are free to get your own internet, your own cable at your own personal expense. Okay?
Might I add something, Major Roxanne?
Yeah, please.
We do our best, and it's Major Roxanne's responsibility and personnel to assign the condo units, and she does her best, and we as training college do our best to accommodate you with the most space possible. Right now, there are no cadets in the 1-bedroom units. Is that correct?
We have 1 cadet in a 1-bedroom.
Oh, sorry, 1 cadet in a 1-bedroom, but that hasn't been the case for many years. And it's just a real jigsaw puzzle. Because you have 3 children doesn't mean you will have a 4-bedroom unit. We don't have any of those. If you have 3 children, depending on their ages, male, female, you know, their gender, it's very complicated, but we do the best and we try to give you the most space that we have possible. Just so that we put that in there, and it's very much dependent year by year.
Thank you, Major Darlene. So true. What's this next line? Shared public computers available at CFOT and booth library. However, cadets are encouraged to bring their own computers, and laptop would be the most practical. We have 2, I believe, 2 computers in downstairs. And basically cadets use those to put a USB in to print something off. And we're actually working, I think, to get a printer that would be, what's the word?
Wireless.
Wireless, that's the word. So everyone's encouraged to bring a computer, and a laptop would be the most practical. Thank you. Next slide.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. There is a no pets policy in place at the cadet residence. A refundable damage deposit will be collected from each cadet upon entry to the college. Each cadet will be provided with a taxable living allowance to assist in offsetting the cost of groceries and household supplies. An additional amount per month will be given to parents for each dependent child under their care. And please note that dependent children over the age of 25 are not eligible for this additional allowance amount unless attending high school. Food services are not provided at CFOT, and that's why you get a monthly living allowance, is because CFOT, we don't provide food for you, and so in place of a food services, you are given this monthly allowance. Why would you need extra money? Some things that to keep in mind as you're thinking about your budget: the barber and hairdresser, dry cleaning, toiletries, meals and snacks, initial stocking of kitchen food supplies. People find that that initial setup of the kitchen can be expensive. So, you know, feel free to pack some of those dry goods in your shipment when you're sending it through. Entertainment, Christmas vacation travel, Christmas gifts, and
Furlough. Oh, yeah.
furlough. Yeah,
Great.
exactly. Personal babysitting, materials for ministry, partners in mission, in Sunday offerings or other fundraising, tithes and offerings, sessional mementos, classroom and school supplies such as paper and computer ink, things like that. Your own phone, cable, personal travel, yeah, furlough, insurance for personal vehicles. Families will also want to budget adequate funds to allow for clothing and schooling needs and other incidental expenses for children.
Might I add that in the past, some cadets have found they've had surprises regarding school expenses. So if you know the school where your child is going to be attending, it's a good idea to just touch base with the school and get an idea of some of the expenses that you might expect in high school or the elementary school that's close by, just so that you're not caught off guard.
Thank you, Major Darling. Good point, because those are a personal expense. School fees would be your own personal expense. So good point. Thank you. Yeah, so parents with school-aged children, we would encourage you to make direct contact with the schools prior to them closing for the summer, so you can get just get the startup dates and get any information you might need. All school fees, as I said, are a personal responsibility for the cadet parents, and all parents are trained equally in preparation for the leadership roles associated with Salvation Army officership. So parents can expect to be absent from their children for varying periods of time, during which time childcare will be required. Parents will be reimbursed for any childcare costs incurred due to CFOT related responsibilities. If we ask you to participate in something, we know we will pay for your childcare, and we're good with that. Okay, so don't think that that is something you have to do. When parents are away, and Major Corns mentioned this, when parents are away on winter assignment or especially weekend, CFOT will reimburse according to the territorial policy toward child care expenses. Any amounts above what is allocated for reimbursement will be a personal responsibility. So for example, if you were going on winter assignment and you wanted to fly both your parents here to care for your children, CFOT would pay for one parent to come, and then it would be a personal expense to pay for the other parent. So we reimburse for one child care person to come and care for your children. I would appreciate if you could let me know by June 15th, if it's possible, if you're accepted by then, with regard to daycare requirements, so that we can reserve space for you at the daycare on behalf of you and your children. Please note that upon entry to CFOT, cadets and dependent children are immediately covered under the officer's medical care plan and the officer's health insurance plan. Okay, so that's from day one of your arrival at Waverly, at your condo. From day one, you are covered under the medical care plan. Because cadets are deemed students, cadets should also be covered by any out-of-province Medicare plans. And I think there used to be a cost for one particular province, but I'm not sure that that's even a thing right now. But should your province have a cost to maintain your care, your medical care plan with that province, then that would be covered by CFOT.
I think that was BC.
It was BC, and my understanding that that has changed in that province, and that there's no longer a personal expense. But yeah, that's what I know today. Yeah. Occasionally, as part of the training program, there are opportunities for cadets to experience short-term overseas missionary work, as well as weekend specialing opportunities in the US. In order to facilitate this, we ask that all cadets have a valid passport. Again, that is a personal expense, and the expense of that cost is approximately $120 to $160, depending on if you get the 5-year or the 10-year passport. New uniform. Provision has been made for accepted candidates to purchase a new ready-made off-the-rack uniform, tunic and pants for men, or tunic and skirts or pants for women, including trim, epaulets, and S's after acceptance and prior to the commencement of training. We would encourage you to place your order as soon as possible, so that when you arrive to CFOT with you arrive to CFOT with your entire formal uniform ready to go. The expense of minor alterations that may be necessary to the uniform can be reimbursed upon submission of a receipt to the candidates department. Accepted candidates should wear their accepted candidates pin following their acceptance up until the time they put on their cadets trim. First year cadet trim may only be worn once cadets leave their home corps for college and on your official farewell Sunday. So on your last Sunday at your home corps, you can wear your cadet trim in preparation for CFOT. That was all the things prior that I have written in getting ready for CFOT. You may have lots of questions, and again, if we can't get to them all here, feel free to email me and I would be happy to respond to you. Once you get to CFOT personnel, we look into things such as staff advisors. Every cadet has a staff advisor. We do evaluations on every cadet, fall, spring, each year. Cadets are involved in work sections. So in your first few months, you're not assigned a work section, but by January of your first year, you are assigned a work section. You get a month to job shadow a second-year cadet, and then by February of your first year, you're doing work sections as well. And so there's lots to think about, lots of information. I recognize that, and hard to maintain it all. You will get a candidate's memorandum with a lot of information in it, and hopefully, yeah, you'll get that. And if you have any questions, feel free to connect with me.
I would invite Cadet Nathaniel, Cadet Amy, Cadet Rebecca, if you want to join in the video call here and participate in the Q&A now. You just click on that blue button up at the top about asking to be brought into the session, and we'll bring you in, okay? I invite the rest of you participants to put your questions in the chat section, and we'll attend to those as quickly as we can. I did see a question earlier about insurance on the condos or your contents. So let me say that as you become a cadet and enter into the life of an officer, you're afforded accommodation. That house is owned and insured by the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army even affords you a contents insurance. So you will participate in the same insurance program as officers. So your goods are insured while you are living in a Salvation Army quarters, and that cadet condo is your quarters. So number of other questions coming in. This is good. So there was a question, I think, about moving and arrangement of moving. Major Roxanne, you want to speak to that briefly?
Can I jump in, Andrew, just about the contents insurance? There are exceptions to that. Fine art, some jewelry, there are exceptions to that, and cadets have discovered that.
Yes, and that's typical of any insurance policy. Yeah. So if you've got some really expensive items, they're not going to be covered under any standard policy. You'd need an extension to your standard insurance, and that would be a personal expense. So yeah, that will be explained. I don't know whether that's part of the candidate memorandum, Major Roxanne, but it's certainly within the insurance booklet that we all have access to. So.
I will check out the memorandum to see if it's in there.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a good question.
The question about moving. Yeah, how does moving work? The Salvation Army has a contract with Campbell Movers, and you will be in contact with, that information will be supplied to you as to who you contact. And yes, you would contact that person around pickup times of your goods to come here. There would be a time frame in which Campbell's would use, but our contract is with Campbell Movers.
I'd ask one of the cadets to answer the question regarding working out, gymnasiums, what's around, what's available.
I guess we can speak into that. So very close, there's the Pan Am Center, which is a swimming and a workout facility. And that's about 2 kilometers away. And then there's also all your standard big name gyms, all within probably 10 kilometers, Good Life, Planet Fitness, all those regular ones you would see across Canada. There's also downtown, near to the school, University of Winnipeg, which we have a relationship with through Booth University. Mm-hmm. And cadets are able to use those at no fee, part of their, with their student card, their Booth card, as well as we have another plan for the winter months to have a reduced rate with the Pan Am. So.
Thank you. A question about can cadets get time off for family emergencies such as a family death? That's a great question. Major Roxanne, you want to attend to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, cadets can get time off. It's not an automatic. It is, you seek permission through the Director of Personnel. I go to the training principal and share your concern, your need, and then Major Andrew makes the decision on whether or not time can be given for the circumstance that you are facing at the time.
That decision comes directly out of guidance from the operating policy in regard to immediate relative, close relative, distance, travel distance to family, all of those very factors. So yes, it's all spelled out in the operating policy. Mm-hmm. Krishna, you've got a question about collecting unemployment insurance while attending college. I don't know that we as training college staff or administration have the quality to speak into that. That's something between you and the province in which you currently reside and whether you would qualify. So I'd encourage you to check that out locally. Other questions? Certainly place in the chat, we'll attend to them. We don't need to extend the session longer than needed, but hoping that this would give you an introduction into matters of life in community. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Maya asked about if the students go to school together in the morning. So the schedule of how it works is that by the time that they would be going to school, we're all actually needing to be on the road to our school. So the process in the morning is we go and drive the kids to the daycare in the morning, even school age ones, and drop them off between 7:30 and 8. and then they
Clarify, Nathaniel, because I know the older kids. Luke, you're on, right? He didn't like it. I'm not going to daycare. No, it's not daycare. It's or morning pre. What's it properly called?
school age program is how they call it for those ones. Yeah. So whatever you want to call it. But so they go there in the morning, and then the daycare, Breitling Academy, drives them to school in order to get them there on time, and then they pick them up afterwards. So you actually are able to, if you have a paper or something due, work on it until 5, or I think the last possible pickup time is 5:30, which is very helpful because kids can be distracting.
We do have, yeah, I was just going to say daycare ages out at, after age 12. So kids older than that normally walk to school, and yes, they walk together if to school. So yeah.
There was a question
Yeah,
about
so
the school fee. So on average, you would pay for, no matter how old your kids are, once they start going to Van Willingham, you need to pay for them to be supervised during the lunch hour because you're unable to come home and be with them during that time. And the fee for that looks around $100 per student. And then as well as the school supply fees. For the younger grades, it's about $100 a student. And then I believe it goes up from that after grade 4. So to give you a ballpark.
Mary, you've got a question about the condos, the rooms. There's going to be a video presentation, I believe, at the beginning of this evening session. You'll have a total virtual tour, like a real estate quality tour of the place. You'll be amazed at these condos. Yeah. So I won't say anything more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Other questions? Going once, going twice. From cadets, anything we missed? Any helpful tips, words of advice?
It sounds overwhelming with all your information at once, but once you get into the swing of things, you'll be smooth sailing. There's lots of support, the community, the staff, anyone you can reach out to. So do not be intimidated.
People going into their second year are able to answer questions on a very helpful note. So you don't always have to be going to Major Roxanne to answer everything. So that transition period is helped by that.
But give yourself grace because there is a transition period, and it lasts different lengths for every person, and so you have to figure out what works for you. So it can be overwhelming, but don't be discouraged by that because you do eventually find your rhythm, and it comes in waves as the semester comes and goes. But if you're called and you're meant to,
especially those with kids,
God will carry you through it.
You see all these faces on this screen. We've all been through this at various years, at various stages, in various provinces, and you've got some that are in it right now. So if we can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're all smiling. So
yeah, amen, amen. Well, thank you all for your participation in this session. Thank you to the officers, Major Roxanne in particular, for leading this personnel section. Thank you, cadets, for your engagement, both in person, through video, and I was watching your chat along. For all the participants, feel free, if you've got a question in particular, you know how to find under the people section and engage in a chat or make an appointment for a video conference. Major Roxanne is available for you in these various questions. So blessings on your day. We'll reconvene according to your schedule, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Major Andrew.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.